have been involved with the World Bank, and you know they talk about control. And so the World Bank looks at the health system in terms of control knobs. What can we sit in our parlor and control and get some results? So we see all those control knobs. It specifically identified 5 control knobs, which are areas of policy actions to intervene in order to improve health. So by the time you control behavior, you know what you're going to be improving. By the time you control regulation or organization or payment or financing, we also know what we are going to be improving. So all these are very important in our discourse because they form the foundation of what health system is and how we can act. The other issue that came to mind was the issue of the COVID. And that comes to mind of what the recent attack we've been having, you know. What we need to know about it is that microbes are here and they're very important to us. As a matter of fact, without microbes, all lives will be extinguished because they form the basic foundation of our food chains. They have been around for at least 3.8 billion years, but the harmful microbes are a tiny proportion of the total microbial diversity. Without them, without microbes, our agriculture will be in shambles. So, but what concerns us now with the microbes are these harmful microbes. And if you look at this chart, you will see that right from the turn of the 20th century, we begin to have some pandemics, you know, as a result of microbes. At the birth of the 20th century, in 1918, we saw the Spanish flu, called the H1N1. And that was recorded to have killed about 50 million of the world's population. More than what the World War I or the World War II could and was able to do. So not soon after, it took a while, up to 50 years before we had the next one, which is the Spanish, which is the Asian flu. Now the Asian flu, which is the H2N2, was able to grab 2 million of our population. And then after we had the Hong Kong flu, the H3N2, which took a less number of people from us. And then we seem to have some interlude until HIV came on board. And HIV has lasted from 1981, and we should be celebrating, you know, I'm sure, very soon the golden jubilee of HIV. It is not yet gone. I hope it will go before the golden jubilee. So we also have the recurring of the first Spanish flu again coming up in 2019. And we go down to 2012 when we began to have these things coming up in quick succession. You know, from, you know, the MERS, the SARS, and now the COVID, which are all in the SARS family. And as of this morning, this has claimed over 1 million lives globally. Nigeria, apart from this pandemic, has had its own share of epidemic of viral illnesses, including Lassa fever, yellow fever, and monkeypox. We all wish and pray that we do not have it again. But I can assure you that the forecast is telling us that we will have more of this, and so we must prepare, you know, for more of this and perhaps more virulent strains of virus, you know, in our system. And that is why it's important we discuss how we can strengthen our health system to be so resilient enough to take care of current and future threats that may come, because pandemics are going to be more frequent in our society. There are clear risk factors for doing that. And if you look at all the risk factors that are outlined on the screen, we cannot control many of them. We cannot, because these have come to stay. Globalization has come to stay. You know, even bioterrorism cannot be controlled. You know, so there are so many things that are happening and that health system need to move along to be able to go with the trend of things. You know, and these are all those factors that are responsible. But what is key in the issue of the COVID is the fact that when we started, we saw it as an epidemic, then a pandemic, and then we were focusing on vertical control of the pandemic. And now, as I'm talking to you, COVID is going to be at least 2 months less than having a full cycle turn of going through all seasons in temperate region and the 2 major seasons in tropical region. And then our actions must change from the vertical transmission of vertical control to a system approach in the control of COVID. That remains new norm that the system must accommodate, and people must have their lives and livelihood restored back to them. There are issues around the COVID which you will see on the screen. One of the notable issues is the issue of confusion among stakeholders. You might have heard diverse news. Oh, sometimes people think a vaccine is at sight, and later we hear, no, the vaccines are not effective. People say, oh, we've got a measure of transmission and infection within the population, herd immunity will be developed. There's still skepticism. Is this going to break the known laws of immunity? Are we going to develop that herd immunity because we are not thinking, could there be some in order to take care of this? Our local health system have done very well. I can assure you that the Nigerian, the NCDC, as well as the Department of Public Health in the state and other stakeholders have done very well in epidemiological and laboratory surveillance. What I know that we've not done very well is in the area of ecological and anthropological surveillance. And that is because we need to understand this, that beyond the physicians, the epidemiologists, and the health system experts, we also have our social scientists. We have others, that have to tell us what is the impact of this among communities. The area of lockdown, nobody knew the impact of lockdown on the community. Nobody knew whether there was any cost benefit, from having a lockdown, and the loss of life or the disadvantage or the economic downturn it might have caused to lives and livelihood. Now, these are very important going forward, and I'm very happy the Director of Public Health is here so that he can expand his team, to include all those that needs to be included, including the anthropologists and the sociologists in future control. So that tells us about the dynamism of our world. Our world is changing very fast, and I believe our system too must change. Our system too must change. The known changes in our world are things we cannot control. We talked about the epidemiological changes, the demographic changes, the economic changes, and we must be able to follow this up by making sure that our health systems are also changing. Indeed, globally, health systems are changing from centralized to decentralized systems, and everyone is trying to contain costs because the budget of many countries cannot fund health alone. On other critical sectors that need to be controlled. So we have these emerging stakeholders in health, and we have the context and the dynamics in which we are operating. Now, this picture just makes us understand that the major stakeholders in health, are increasing, and we need to embrace them. And the context in which we are facing, you have higher demand and very little resources to do that. So it makes us to think about how efficient we can be or become, to be able to achieve more with the very little or scarce resources at our disposal. Indeed, the resources are, before I do that, I think we need to act fast. And that is why I'm very hopeful that the current leadership of the NMA and other states, both at the state and the national level, will take this very serious. Because we know that despite the heightened solidarity and during the COVID pandemic, it is clear that the current and predicted impact of the pandemic will differ from country to country. But according to the former British Prime Minister, success will go only to countries which are swift to adapt, slow to complain, and willing and open to change. I want to tell this August Assembly that COVID-19 provides great opportunities for us to transform and fundamentally improve our health system, but the stewardship role is too serious. This stewardship role of transforming our health system is too serious a business to be left alone to politicians. All stakeholders hands must be on deck in order to achieve this. So health system reform has been an ongoing thing, and is defined as an ongoing process of sustained, purposeful, and strategic change in policy and institutional arrangement in the health sector that are designed to improve the performance of the health sector and ultimately to improve population health. May I know why the screen is not showing? Excuse me? Why is the screen not showing? All right. So health system is very important. Reforms have been ongoing. The question will now be, will this discourse this morning make any difference? Your guess may be as good as mine. However, I am convinced more than ever before, like I said earlier on, that the current crop of NMA executive at the state and the federal level can make the difference. They have already gone around those that matter. And I know by the time they present the case for health, those that matter will listen and they will do the right thing. All right. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. We're going to strategies. Yes, 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 yes. Go, go, go. Go again. So what are the outcomes? First of all, before we start discussing the strategy, I want us to know the end points of this strategy. What we intend to achieve with all our health system strengthening or recovery is to ensure, number one, that there is universal health coverage, which is known as unrestricted access to quality and effective health care by the general population. That means everyone, everywhere will be able to access health care whenever they need it, to the extent they need it, without thinking about how to pay for it. Number two end point is that we build a resilient health system. And that is the ability of our health system to absorb disturbance and respond to current and emerging threats. I'm happy hearing from the Director of Public Health that when it comes to surveillance and containment of disease, they've been able to build a resilient system. But what about the general systems we have? Can it cope? Gone were those days when we need to wait for WHO or external forces to come and solve our problems. Under the guise of we have an emergency, we cannot. It's time we rise up as a giant of this continent, to build a resilient health system that can take care of current threat and also future threat. The third outcome or end is the fact that we need to build health security at the individual level, the community, and at the global scale. All these are endpoints that are important, for us as we discuss strategy. Nigeria has been on the table or round table discussing and implementing policies to achieve each of those three strategies, endpoints. In 2001, we had a World Health System and the World Minimum Health Care Package. We revised our National Health Policy in 2004, and we had the National Health Act, first in history, in 2014. And we also, with the National Health Act, we had a Presidential Declaration of 2014. So we have a plethora of policies, of programs, of plans in this country. To the launch of the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund and the National Health Insurance Commission's Bill in 2019. So we've had all this in this country. But the question you will ask, and I'm still asking, where has all this led us to? We have our scorecard on the screen that talks about the status of Nigeria on Universal Health Status Indicator. Indicator is how much of our general government expenditure as a percent product is devoted to health. The WHO benchmark of 2010 says this should be 5%. As of today, Nigeria is 0.7%. Now these are global benchmarks. So it's not just pertaining to Nigeria, but Nigeria has performed less than whatever you know. We have not gone 50%. Now the next one is domestic general health expenditure. That's domestic. As general government health expenditure, their budget declaration says this should be 15% for all rural Afro countries, but currently in Nigeria we are 6.6%. Now out of pocket, and you have to pay at the point of accessing healthcare, which is one of the most devilish practice we can do to our people. The World Health Report says countries should reduce this to 30 to 40%, but we have scaled up to 77.5%. It means that 3 out of every 4 persons will have to pay for healthcare at the point of access. The others are perhaps those privileged, to have purchased a private insurance for themselves, or their companies are paying for them, or they have been enrolled under the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is a paltry 5% of the population. The last benchmark was general government expenditure as per capita. That's how much government spends on each resident or each member of the society in Nigeria. The Chatham Declaration says in 2014 said this should be $86. But as of today, we are spending $10 per populace, for health. How can this achieve healthcare? Healthcare is not cheap. But countries have made it a priority, and that is why they have voted in more resources into it. We have not had a pass mark on any of these UAC indicators. This is an abysmal performance. Let us see this as a scorecard of not only politicians, but as a scorecard of all doctors, all health workers, all health managers, all stakeholders in the health sector, as well as the Nigerian government. As doctors and leaders of the Nigerian health system at various levels, we cannot exonerate ourselves from this abysmal failure of the Nigerian health system. The question is, what can we do at this stage? We have made lots of trials in the past. We don't need to reinvent the wheel or experiment what has failed in the past. We need to look forward on what we can do. From the past, we have seen that the reason why we have not moved forward is the fact that health is still not a political priority in this country, both at state and at federal level. We have also noticed that there's inefficient flow and management of financial resources within the health system. If you go to the website, you will see the budget both at the national and the state level. But when you go even to the Ministry of Health, you don't know how expenses are done in health. It appears that the release of funds to the ministry or these parastatals are in cryptocurrency. That we don't see, we only hear about it. So it's difficult to know, are we putting the money in the right place? Or is the money not even being released? It's one thing to budget, it's another thing to release those funds to what it should be used for. We also see that the issue of high incidence of out-of-pocket payment for healthcare is one of the things destroying our health system. The days of the Bamako initiative are gone. We must come to terms with new realities and ensure that we raise a system that can take care of the lives of everyone, because every life in Nigeria matters. Our health system, which should have been so simple to navigate, has become so complex. The status of the national health insurance leave a lot of woeful tale to be told. The low absorptive capacity of current government structure is worrisome. In 2018, for the first time, the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund was released, and up to today, government structures have not been able to utilize this because there is no accountability framework for the use of this money. What people want is that just release money to us and let them spend it the way they like, and we get no result for it because there's no structure in place to manage these funds. So there's absence of appropriate accountability framework and strategy, and there's poor capacity and weak mechanism to tap from the great potentials of the private sector. I started work, and my banker expressed me to come to the paper ledger, and they check how much my balance is. And if I don't go to that branch, I get no money. But with liberalization of the banking sector, we saw the wonders. Your guess is as good as mine that some of you are listening to me and you are making banking transaction right where you are. What has happened to our health sector? It is a stronger grip of the government and the public sector that has kept our health sector where it is. So we must work hard to see that we move this forward. And I'm told our health system will not work in this country. In other words, if you hinge our health system on private insurance, it will not work because private insurers are cherry pickers. They look at the money to pay, or you don't have a debilitating condition that will make them spend so much. We need to all preach and ask our government that public financing of healthcare is the key to achieving health system. Let's not go through other fanciful things like I said earlier on. The private voluntary insurance, including the community-based insurance that have been preached everywhere, it cannot give us universal health coverage. At best, with the support of good-spirited individuals or companies, it can cover for a small area. But to talk about universal health coverage, that's not the way to go. We must make the government sit up to their responsibility and ensure that tax and social insurance remains the key, to achieving universal health coverage in Nigeria. The policy options are very clear from the WHO cube diagram. And I'm going to be discussing this as we round up this session very quickly. I said for a policy like this, we need to think about what to do. And not only that, we think of how do we do it. The question remains, how do we strengthen or recover our health system to take care of current and future threats in Nigeria? You all by now should be convinced that change is the key word. But convincing human beings to give up what they know for something that is uncertain is not an easy task to do. And that is why I'm very happy we have leaders here that will take this message home and drive it until we get to this outcome of universal health coverage, resilient health system, and health security for all. So the first thing we think about is leadership. Leadership is key to moving our health system forward. And when we talk about leadership, we're not just looking at leadership or status, be it professional, administrative, cultural, or political. We are talking about influence. We are talking about skills. We are talking about how we can engrave the enthusiasm to enable people, galvanize the effort of people to achieve an end. According to Confucius, it said that those who should govern should be chosen not on the basis of heredity or any other characteristics, but on demonstrable features of virtue and capacity. Without capacity, you can't be a leader. Peter Drucker said effective leadership is not about making good speeches. It's not about being liked. Leadership is defined by results. If the result is right, the leader is the right leader. It's not by attribute. So in order to get leadership right, we need to understand this very clearly. That we must get the right people in right places. A merit-based selection of heads of MDAs and health facilities is the way to go. We need visionary leaders with adaptive skills. We need leaders that have strong commitments to transparency. We need leaders that are there to ensure that stakeholders have a voice in the process. We need leaders that have made listening and communication personal priority. Today we have position occupiers that once they become in that position, they are no more. They cannot be, nothing happens. And they are our colleagues. We must tell them the truth. If they are not the right leader, we ask for them to leave so that we can have the right leader to save the entire profession. And I know the NMA, the right leadership is here to do that. So when we have right people in right, we'll have multiplication. So leadership in healthcare is a very serious business. We also need to strengthen governance. Strengthen governance in the health system. Now to strengthen governance, we need to ensure that governance is all about the framework we are working on. Sometimes you need to redesign your system for effectiveness. I took a look at most of what is happening currently, and I was trying to find out what are the motives for doing some of those things. For example, you see in the Ministry of Health and most of the parastatals, you see a Department of Medical Services, you see a Department of Nursing Services, a Department of Pharmaceutical Services. All these are all talking about health workers run by people that are not HRO experts. And you find out that if you have to go that line, the number of departments you're going to have will be endless because the professional groups are increasing. I believe that we should take a stand and understand that the issue of health worker migration, health worker dissatisfaction can only be resolved if we have appropriate structure in our ministry called HR department that are headed by qualified HR managers that will know when to employ, how to train, how to deploy, and not have the system that people that are untrained or trained in other things are coming on to take on a space. Another thing I saw in the system is that we belong to a system now where supplies and logistics is becoming most prominent because we must have the right things to work with in the right location. And these ministries and departments don't have a supply and logistics department. So who is doing what? At the end of the day, somebody says I don't have the this, another person at another end said no, they'll be supplied. We must stop all those. So we must reform. And I'm told that this does not require legislative backing. It's all administrative. So I believe the Honorable Commissioner here will take that very serious and ensure that we redesign the system to be able to achieve. If not, whatever we are doing here will just be like any other discussion. Stakeholders management is also very important. And I knew that in 2018 there was a good initiative to have a stakeholder summit, early 2018. And I knew we sent all the proposals, but I doubt if we received even an acknowledgement of our submission, but that does not hold. It's important for the health system to map its stakeholders and learn how to manage them so that all hands will be on deck to move the system forward. I'm not told that there's any reward system. I have not seen, I have not heard. That we encourage people to see good examples of what is happening and encourage them to go that way. We've had cases of vindictiveness within our system, which I know NMA will stand up to and ensure that this stops once and for all. The issue of developing accountability framework for the MDS is very important. Sometimes you have a clear question, who is doing what? What are the key performance indices? What do we expect from them? Do people just run in year out without results and they remain an MDA? That should not continue. We also need to think about how to decentralize administration to wards and local government levels. These are very key. What about legislature or regulations? I know our learned judge is here and he understands this as well. That the health sector or system in this case need to pursue vigorously policies on liberalization, deregulation, and privatization. Why do I say liberalization? We need to ensure that we open up our system for players to come in. Don't make our system a closed system. I've traveled in many countries of the world and I see what happened in those countries. You can be in France and you see an American hospital in France or in Dubai. But you come to Nigeria, you know they are restricted. If you are an expatriate, you cannot be a CEO of a health service organization. Where did we go brought this to us? We must look at ways we can change all this obnoxious policy. Doctors migrate now to other parts of the world, and after going through the preliminary process of registration, they get the full license like every other doctor to practice. But in Nigeria, they are given limited license. Every 3 years you come. This is a country with the abysmal health indices, and we are being restrictive. NMA should take up that discussion with the MDCN and ensure that they go through their books, and everything that at least its usefulness should be taken away so that we can move our system forward. The same thing goes with deregulations and privatization. We have talked about privatization over time, even a commercially viable entity within our health system, but it has not been done. Don't you think it's because we do not have what it takes, to make this happen? I recall the years of Eyitero Lambo. Then I was a NAD vice president. We pushed this agenda to a very far extent before Eyitero was removed from office. And then we have gone back to having a public health system, that will take us nowhere. The national governments have been passed into law, but that has also been shared. We are only looking at the institutional framework to implement it. But I think also, apart from what the national is doing, the state has a lot to play as well. The state has a lot to play. And I believe the Honorable Commissioner of Health here will tell the Commission that we'll discuss this and make a gift to NMA and the people of Rivers State that before the end of this year, the governor grants access to the bill for the establishment of the Rivers State Contributing Health Care Protection Program, which has already proposed, and I understand have been budgeted 2% in the state consolidated revenue since 2018. That would be a birthday gift to the people of Rivers State. We need to also expand insurance to informal sectors like the organized private sector, and others. We need to work hard to ensure that there is full coverage for vulnerable population, especially children, elderly, and unemployed, and including pregnancy, long-term medical conditions, and emergency health care. I'm told the Rivers State free medical health system is moribund. I believe that can be revitalized and reorganized to meet this need. Another big issue is the issue of strengthening our workforce. I said earlier on the governance issue, we need to establish HRO department as well as the logistics and supply departments in the MDOs. We also need to develop a state health workforce account to know what is and where they are and what they are doing. We also need to develop technologically skilled healthcare worker. Indeed, if you are not technologically skilled, you have no place in healthcare provision. Because the states will be moving towards electronic medical services, moving towards telehealth and so on. So there must be deliberate effort to ensure that both the internet migrants, those of us born before the internet, and the internet natives come at par with technology so that we can be able to grab this new change coming up within our health system. What about the issue of provision of critical commodities? That needs to be taken care of with all seriousness. We need to improve services to attain the ends we have discussed earlier on. We need to establish isolation center in all secondaries and tertiary health facilities. This is not a makeshift action anymore. This is what has come to stay. And our facilities must be equipped to that. We need to develop patient appointment system. Now we need to also strengthen research. Budget funds for research. Ensure that every decision taken in the state is evidence-based. We can't keep doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. We also need to change behavior of health workers even as we work towards behavioral change of the populace to bring about individual, collective, and global health security. We need to ensure that all forms of anti-technology bias within the health system is done away with. If the banking sector could go why can't healthcare that has so much funding? Education is already leading among the government sector. Health should follow. By ensuring that ICT-driven health services are brought into the scene, mHealth, telehealth, Internet of Things are brought in. We also need to strengthen partnership for health. Ministry of Health is not alone. Environment is there. Housing is there. We need to have that partnership strengthened and increase our capacity and responsibility and revenue that is given to the state. One of the persistent difficulties in Nigerian health care is the abnormal structuring, where the federal government takes more than 50% of this. Federal government has no business providing health services. That should be devolved down to the state and the local government. But that will have implication on the current revenue sharing formula, which NMA should pursue vigorously. Like I've emphasized over time, that we are not alone in this business. And as such, we need to recognize all our other stakeholders, including media and the non-governmental agencies, the patient and groups and patient associations, as well as the traditional institutions. We need to recognize them as partners as we strive to strengthen and recover our health system. In driving this message home, our world is rapidly changing, and local health systems also need to change. We face increasing threats of emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases at some of pandemic scale. Health system strengthening should be pursued vigorously by a concerted effort of all stakeholders and all our partners for development. This effort at health system strengthening should aim at achieving universal health coverage, health security, and a resilient health system. The time to safeguard population health against current and future threats in Nigeria is now. We have the right leadership. I believe I've been able to motivate you, and together we will win. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Please, can we give him another round of applause? Yes, sir. But sir, before you go, Professor, on Zoom, and Professor Unari George will ask the question. He's asking about funding of our healthcare system. Okay. Thank you all. Please, may you have your seats. Members of the high table, you may return to the high table at the moment. Thank you very much. At this moment, we would like to recognize the presence of the DC MAC, University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital, Dr. Ocheli, Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to have you in our midst today. Please give him a round of applause. We also want to recognize the presence of Professor Hope Ilanye Belgam, Professor of Geriatrics. You are welcome, madam. It's a pleasure to have you here today. We would like to appreciate the presence of Dr. Chijoke Manda, Director of Medical and Dental Services, Rivers State. Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to have you here. We'll appreciate it if you can come sit somewhere in front. Thank you, sir. Okay, so right now, without wasting too much time, we want to take a remark by a special guest of honor, who is supposed to be the Commissioner for Health, Rivers State, who is ably represented by Dr. Golden Owanda. So you have just a minute to talk to us. Thank you.
Make room for two.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of this occasion, Royal Father, the provost of the College of Medicine, the chairman NMA, let me stand on the protocol that has been established here today. I bring you very warm greetings from the Honorable Commissioner and the Permanent Secretary, Rivers State Ministry of Health, whom I'm holding brief today. Apparently they were caught up in traffic. It's a delight for the choice of the keynote address and the discussions that had gone here today, especially discussing the effort towards containing COVID and building a resilient healthcare system. He has also asked me to express very strongly to the audience that the Rivers State Ministry of Health and indeed all stakeholders will work assiduously to strengthen the healthcare system, to become more resilient, better than we have found it, make it stronger, to respond to whether there are pandemics, vulnerabilities, or in every sector of the healthcare system. I believe we can do this together. We can achieve to make healthcare affordable, equitable, and accessible to all residents in the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to welcome the Royal Father of the Day, His Royal Majesty, King Dr. Samuel Amechi, for a 1-minute remark, sir.
The chairman, retired Chief Judge of the State, Justice Ndo, represented the chairman of NMA, the chairman of this LOC, and all the people in the high table. My colleagues, the physicians, I thank you so much. I've gained a lot from the keynote address presented today. I'm also a medical doctor. I have a clinic. And today, I'm a traditional ruler. My advice to you is that we've gained so much today, we should try as much as possible for some of us that are now in the rural area. We want the physicians to please do us a favor by sending our colleagues to the rural areas, and let NMA do us a favor by monitoring the doctors in the rural area. Today, the doctors all over the world, mostly Nigeria, are facing a serious challenge, the COVID-19. And I commend the effort of our physicians, because they are the first people, more than other sectors, and they are doing tremendously very well, more than what you can find any part of the world. when the Chinese doctors came, the step taken by Nigerian doctors were quite commendable. Is to show that, yes, we know our onions. We cannot be intimidated by anybody. So I appreciate what you're doing. The traditional rulers in the state said we are very happy with what our doctors are doing. And we do our best to support you and cooperate with you in whatever they're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. At this point, we want to welcome Professor Chituru Oluwene, Provost, College of Medical Sciences at the Rivers State University, for a short remark.
Thank you. The chairman of the occasion and the chairman, my own boss, the chairman of the Governing Council of the Rivers State University, here ably represented by the eminent jurist, Your Lordship, Justice Enebeli, our very senior colleague in the profession of medicine, His Royal Majesty, King Dr. Samuel Amechi. You're welcome, sir. I'm happy to see you here today. Our keynote speaker, a guru in public health, and somebody that has done justice to the topic given to him today. You've done more than enough today. I'm very impressed and I'm very proud of you. Dr. Dapri Mogaji, my brother, the Chief Medical Doctor, River State University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Aaron Friday. Dr. Godin Owonda, my brother, you are here on dual capacity, representing the Honorable Commissioner for Health, and also as one of the sub-team speakers. Sorry, I wasn't early enough to enjoy your lecture, but I know what you can do. Well, I reserve the best for the last. Our own, the chief host of today, the man who has brought us together, the chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association, River State Branch, our own Professor Chizundo Aleko. Thank you very much. My colleagues, senior colleagues, elders in the profession, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, let me say here very clearly that we must commend the present crop of executive of the River State Nigerian Medical Association River State Branch. They have done very well. The topic here is very apt. And this is what we are advocating at this time. The COVID pandemic still has some way to go. And in fact, we are about, it's about transmuting to an endemic. And that is what the guest speaker has told us. And the summary of what he has said today is that it is time for us to promote health rather than healthcare. It is time for us to promote the well-being and welfare of the doctors. It's very, very important. And our resilience or vulnerability to future attack or crisis depends to a very large extent on how the strategic modalities put in place here can be put in place. And it is very, very important that we escalate this message. The lecture, which is so practical, we should escalate it to the higher quarters. And it's not just the duty of the Honorable Commissioner for Health and the Director of Public Health, River State. It is the duty of all of us to move this to the next level. I want to thank us for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Want to welcome Chief Medical Director of River State University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Friday Aaron, for a 1-minute remark.
The chairman of today's occasion, Justice Ichendu, retired, ably represented by Honorable Justice Adolphus Enebeli, distinguished members of the High Table, colleagues, I feel very pleased to address us this afternoon on this theme for the 2020. It's a very apt theme, and I congratulate the chairman and the SOC of River State NMA for this topic and the choice of the speakers for today's event. Going through the lectures, I came late, permit me for coming late, chairman and members of the High Table and colleagues. Going through the lectures, I saw strategies. Some people develop strategies, others work on the tactical end. So we talked about strategies, and most of us, the clinicians, will have to be the people that will work on the tactical side of these strategies that are developed. So it is very important that while we talk about strategies, we also look at tactics, because these are the things that will make us strengthen the health systems, even during and after the pandemic. I want to congratulate the Ministry of Health, His Excellency, for all that we have gone through and what we have been able to achieve during this period of the pandemic. Now, going forward with what we have heard concerning strategies for recovery, it means that a lot has to be done. And I know that the messages will also go back to the relevant stakeholders. One thing that I want to say here that I heard from the speaker is free medical. I don't like hearing about free medical, sir. It is not sustainable. If we talk about contributory health insurance scheme for our people, very good. But free medical, the experience we had, we have not recovered from it. And I wouldn't want the government to go through that route again. It's on this note, I once again congratulate the chairman and members of the SOC for a job well done. And to us members of the association, we are here to support the SOC. We are here to run the race of strengthening the health system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. At this moment, we want to welcome the chairman of the occasion, Honorable Justice Iche Ndu, who is ably represented by Justice Adolfo Senebili, to come and give us his closing remarks.
Members of the High Table, please permit me to stand on protocol is already read out. I have made all the remarks I ought to make in my opening remarks, and on behalf of my appointer, retired Justice Ichendu, former Chief Judge of River State, Pro-Chancellor, and Chairman Governing Council of River State University. I have listened to Dr. Daprim Solomon. Am I right? Yes. That was an excellent acquittal of professionalism, so to speak. Yes. His lectures were well loaded. At a point, I asked the president whether it's a lecture. He said yes. It's as scholarly as insightful. And being a layman, I've learned a lot from him. I remember an anonymous writer who wrote on the hypocrisy of a physician worthy of his commission as a medical practitioner must abide by that. Because, in paraphrase, that the hand of a dutiful and conscientious medical doctor that heals is the hand of God that heals. So you are the instrument through which God heals, though God is the ultimate healer. One point that sensitized me and provoked my sentiment, you can't hear me. One point that provoked was a comment by the president, Professor Aliko, when he presented the problem of one of them that was kidnapped
Dr. Boma Erekosima, who has been in custody. You see, if the savior of life in the person of a medical practitioner cannot be saved, then society is into. From him, we can know that medical doctors perform very essential services, very valuable services, yet they are the most vulnerable in society. We call on the government of the day, rescue the medical doctor. Everything well begun must have an end. We have come to the grand finale, and we are not departing from God's mercy. We pray that all that we learn will be put into practical reality.
Thank you so much. Impressive remark. At this point, we want to welcome the Secretary, NMA Rivers, Dr. Famba, for his vote of thanks.
Permit me to stand on the existing protocol because of waste of time. Now we have come to the end of this momentous event, but before we round up, just a few words of appreciation. On behalf of the State Officers Committee, the State Executive Council, and the Local Organizing Committee of the 2020 Physicians Week, I wish to express our profound gratitude to our special guests, the chairman of the occasion, the special guest of honor, the guest of honor, the keynote speaker, and all our distinguished guests. We are also grateful to our corporate sponsors, individual sponsors, health facilities, media houses, and other partners for your contributions towards the success of this year's Physicians Week. To our medical elders, all distinguished members of our great association, our noble profession, and other professional bodies in the health sector, we say thank you. Thank you for being here, and I wish you all safe journey to your various destinations. As we go home, please let's remember Boma Erekosima and pray for, please. God bless you. God bless NMA River State. God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Please, maybe all rise for the national anthem. Let's all share the grace. Grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the sweet fellowship of the Holy Spirit rest and abide with us now and forevermore. Amen. Please let's give preference to the members of the high table and let them exit the hall first so that they can take pictures downstairs. Thank you all.
I find a lot to stop